The airport was alive with movement, a chaotic blend of travelers dragging their suitcases, the hum of flight announcements overhead, and families reuniting with long-awaited embraces. Emma stood near the arrival gate, shifting anxiously on her feet, her eyes scanning. Where is he? Her older brother Noah was finally coming home after 2 years of working abroad. She had been counting the days, imagining the moment she would finally see him again. Then, she saw him. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair styled the same way she remembered, his coat, the same one Noah always wore in winter, his black jeans, his sturdy boots, everything matched. Her heart soared. Without a second thought, Emma rushed forward, weaving through the crowd until she reached him. And without hesitation, she threw her arms around him. "Oh my God, Noah, I missed you so much," she breathed into his chest, hugging him tight. But the moment her fingers curled into the fabric of his coat, she felt it. Something was wrong. His body was too firm, his scent, a crisp, woody cologne she didn't recognize. A sinking feeling gripped her stomach. Wait. Emma slowly lifted her head, and her entire world tilted. This was not her brother. Instead, standing before her was a man with sharp, chiseled features, piercing dark eyes that were fixed directly on her, and a jawline that looked like it belonged in a high-fashion ad. A complete stranger. Emma's entire body stiffened. She ripped herself away from him, her face burning with horror. I'm so sorry," she blurted, stepping back so fast that she nearly tripped. I thought you were someone else. This is so embarrassing." The man didn't say anything right away. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, his dark eyes studying her. Then, the corner of his mouth twitched. "Huh." Emma blinked, her heart still racing. "Huh," she echoed, breathless. The man slid his hands into his pockets, his expression half amused, half indifferent. "I've seen plenty of ways women try to get a man's attention," he said, his voice smooth and slow, like he was enjoying dragging out her humiliation. "But throwing yourself into my arms?" He raised a single brow. "That's new." Emma's stomach plummeted. "Wait, what? He thinks I did that on purpose?" Her mouth opened and closed in shock. No, you don't understand. I seriously thought you were my brother. You two look so much alike from behind, I swear, I wasn't trying to—" He exhaled through his nose, like he didn't quite believe her. "Right," he drawled, clearly unconvinced. Emma gawked at him. Oh my God, he actually thinks I planned this. Before she could protest further, he glanced at his watch. "Anyway," he said, turning away, as if she was no longer worth his time. "Have a nice day, miss. Whoever you are." And just like that, he walked away, leaving her standing there. "Wait, what? That's it? He's just going to leave like that?" Emma stood frozen, her mouth still half open. And then, a familiar laugh echoed behind her. "Emma, were you seriously just hugging a random guy?" Emma whipped around. And there he was, her real brother, Noah, standing a few feet away, carrying his duffel bag, watching the entire disaster unfold. Emma wanted to scream, "Oh my God!" Noah chuckled, stepping closer. "Wow, I was gone for 2 years, and you're already hugging strangers? That's new." Emma groaned, burying her face in her hands. "I am going to die." Noah slung an arm around her shoulder, grinning. "Nah, you'll survive. But, maybe check next time before throwing yourself at someone." Emma sighed deeply. But as she turned her head, just for a second, her eyes flickered toward the direction the man had walked. He was gone. Yet, for some reason, her heart was still racing. She didn't know it yet, but that single mistake, that one misplaced hug, had just set something in motion, something far bigger than she could ever imagine. A week had passed since the disastrous airport encounter. Emma had done everything in her power to erase that humiliating moment from her mind. She threw herself into work at the cafe, ignored her brother's constant teasing, and tried not to replay the moment she mistakenly hugged a complete stranger. It was just one awkward moment. I'll never see him again. Or so she thought. Because fate, it had other plans. It was Friday evening, right before closing time. The coffee was quiet. Only a handful of customers remained, sipping their coffee, lost in their own world. Emma was wiping down the counter, waiting for her shift to end. The bell above the door chimed. Emma glanced up automatically, and her breath caught in her throat. Him, the man from the airport, the man she had humiliated herself in front of, the man who thought she had hugged him on purpose. Nope. No way. This isn't happening. She stood frozen, gripping the cloth in her hands, watching in disbelief as he walked in, completely unaware of her presence. He was dressed differently this time. A fitted white dress shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, and dark trousers. He looked sharp, professional, cold, and even more annoyingly attractive. Emma's stomach dropped. Of all the coffee shops in this city, why does he have to come here? She immediately turned her back to the counter. If I don't move, maybe he won't see me. Emma, her manager called from the back. Can you take one last order before you go? Emma internally screamed. She took a deep breath, straightened her apron, and turned around, forcing a neutral expression. Don't panic. Just take his order and act normal. She grabbed her notepad, stepped toward the counter, and prayed he wouldn't recognize her. Good evening, she said in the most professional tone she could manage. What can I get for you? The man barely glanced at her. Black coffee, no sugar, he said coolly. Emma nodded quickly, writing it down. Coming right up. She turned to make the coffee, hoping, desperately, that he wouldn't look at her too closely. Please don't recognize me. Please don't recognize me. But then, she heard him say her name. Emma. She froze. Oh no, slowly, so painfully slowly, she turned to face him. And that's when she saw it. The slight raise of his brow, the faintest flicker of recognition in his dark eyes. He remembered. Emma's stomach twisted into 1,000 knots. You... His gaze ran over her uniform, her name tag, and then back to her face. You work here. It wasn't a question. It was an observation. A cold, emotionless one. Emma swallowed, forcing a polite smile. Yep. I do silent stretched between them. And then, he smirked. Not a warm or friendly smirk. A knowing, unreadable one. What a coincidence, he murmured, tapping his fingers against the counter. First the airport, now here. Emma's face burned. She knew what he was thinking. He still thinks I threw myself at him on purpose. Her fingers clenched around the coffee cup. It's not a coincidence. I work here. You just happened to walk in. That was all he said. Just a single low hum. As if he didn't believe her. As if he thought this was some kind of game. Emma exhaled sharply, trying to maintain her composure. Your coffee's ready, she said, setting the cup on the counter. He reached for it, but before taking a sip, his eyes locked onto hers. Then, in the same cold, measured voice, he said, I still don't believe in coincidences. And with that, he turned and walked away. Emma stood frozen, heart pounding. She should have been relieved, but she wasn't. Because, for some reason, she had a feeling this wasn't the last time she'd see him. Emma had spent the last few days convincing herself that their second encounter was just a fluke. Sure, running into that cold, infuriating man twice was unsettling. But the world was big. There was no way they'd cross paths again. She told herself that as she sent out job applications. She told herself that as she scrolled through emails, searching for an opportunity that matched her dream career, fashion design. She even told herself that as she sat through 2 nerve-wracking interviews, clutching her portfolio like it was her lifeline. Soon, I'll start a real job, and I'll never have to think about him again. And for a while, it seemed like fate was on her side. Until it wasn't. 2 weeks after her airport disaster, Emma finally got the email she had been waiting for. Subject: Congratulations, you've been selected for the final interview. Emma's heart leaped with excitement. Yes, this is it. A real opportunity at one of the top fashion companies in the city. She immediately called her best friend, Sophie. Soph, I did it. I got the final interview for the junior designer position at KC Fashions. Sophie squealed on the other end. That's amazing. KC is huge. Their designs are on every major runway. This could be your big break. Emma beamed, already imagining herself in a sleek design studio, sketching her latest creations. Just one more interview, one step closer to my dream. The day of the interview, Emma arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in her most professional yet stylish outfit. She stepped into the stunning glass building, clutching her portfolio tightly. Stay calm. Be confident. The receptionist greeted her with a smile. Good morning. You're here for the final interview for the junior designer position, correct? Emma nodded. Yes. Emma Brooks. The receptionist gestured toward a sleek waiting area. Please have a seat. The CEO will be conducting the final interview personally. Emma froze. Wait, what? She had assumed the design manager or HR director would handle the interview. But the CEO? Her heart thumped against her ribs. Okay, it's fine. CEOs are just people, professional, serious, rich but normal. It's not like I know them personally or anything. A few minutes later, the receptionist smiled and stood. You can go in now. The CEO's office is down the hall, last door on the right. Emma took a deep breath, gathered her confidence, and walked down the hall. You got this. This is your dream job. Just impress them, and everything will be fine. She reached the last door, hesitated for only a second, then knocked. Come in. A deep, familiar voice. Emma's entire body stiffened. No way. It couldn't be. She pushed the door open, and her stomach plummeted. Sitting behind the massive desk, dressed in an expensive suit, his sharp gaze lifting to meet hers, was him. The man from the airport, the man from the cafe, the man who thought she had thrown herself at him, the man who clearly had no idea she was applying to his company. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Oh, my God. He stared at her, his expression unreadable, but the surprise in his eyes was unmistakable. A long, heavy silence filled the room. Then, he spoke. Well, he said slowly, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed as if this was amusing. We meet again, Miss Brooks. Emma wanted to disappear. Of all the companies, of all the jobs, why did it have to be his company? She swallowed, forcing herself to stay composed. Mr. Carter, she said, keeping her voice steady, even though her heart was racing. A slow smirk tugged at his lips. So, let me get this straight. He tapped his fingers against the desk. First, you hug me at the airport. Then, you serve me coffee. And now? His eyes flickered to the KC Fashions logo on the portfolio in her hands. You're applying to my company? Emma exhaled sharply. Oh, he is loving this. She lifted her chin. It's a coincidence. His smirk widened slightly. There's that word again. Emma clenched her jaw. I applied here because KC Fashions is one of the best companies in the industry. I had no idea you worked here, let alone that you were the CEO. Silence. For a long moment, he just studied her, his sharp gaze unreadable. Then he sighed, leaning forward. Well, this is unexpected. Unexpected? Emma wanted to scream. This was a nightmare. He steepled his fingers. Let's get one thing straight. I don't mix personal matters with business. Emma nodded quickly. Neither do I. Good. He picked up her portfolio, flipping through her designs. His expression remained neutral, but his gaze lingered on certain sketches. Then, he looked up. Your work is impressive. Emma blinked. Wait, was that a compliment? He set the portfolio down and leaned forward, his elbows resting on the desk. But skill isn't enough, he said. If you want to work here, you need more than talent. You need determination. Emma met his gaze head on. I have both. A pause. Then, a slow, unreadable smile. Then let's see how determined you really are. Emma left the office in a daze. She had expected to answer questions about her skills, her experience, her goals. What she didn't expect was for him to challenge her. Show me what you can do, he had said. Design a full concept for our upcoming winter collection. If I'm impressed, you'll get the job. If not, he had simply shrugged. No easy way in? No favors, just a test. Emma exhaled slowly, gripping her portfolio. Fine. If he wants a challenge, I'll give him one. She was done running into this man by accident. This time, she would prove herself on her own terms. Sleep was a luxury Emma couldn't afford. She spent the entire night battling self-doubt, sketching, discarding, and sketching again. Papers covered the floor of her tiny apartment, rejected ideas stacking up around her like silent critics. No, I won't let him intimidate me. If he wants to test me, I'll give him something he can't ignore. Her fingers ached from holding the pencil for hours, but she pushed through, pouring everything she had into her designs. Because this wasn't about proving herself to him, it was about proving herself to herself. The next morning, Emma walked into Casey Fashions with dark circles under her eyes, but fire in her chest. Her portfolio was clutched tightly in her hands as she made her way to the receptionist. Good morning, the woman greeted her. Mr. Carter is expecting you. Emma nodded, inhaling deeply. This is it. As she approached the door to his office, her heart hammered against her ribs. The memory of their past encounters played like a warning in her head. The airport, the coffee shop, the smirk, the way he looked at her like she was playing some elaborate game. Not this time. She straightened her shoulders and knocked. Come in. That voice, calm, deep, unbothered, she pushed open the door, and there he was. Seated behind his massive desk, Liam Carter looked every bit the powerful CEO. The crisp white shirt, the expensive watch, the sharp gaze that flicked up the second she entered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, without taking his eyes off her, he gestured to the seat across from him. Sit. Emma moved forward, carefully placing her portfolio on the desk between them. Stay calm. Stay professional. You're here because of your talent, not because of fate playing tricks on you. She met his gaze. I've completed the assignment. Liam didn't say a word. Instead, he picked up her portfolio and flipped open the first page. Emma held her breath. Page by page, he studied her work in absolute silence. His fingers traced the edges of her designs. Not a flicker of emotion. Not a single hint of what he was thinking. Emma sat rigidly still, resisting the urge to read his face, to ask him what he thought. Then, finally, he shut the folder. The silence stretched. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. Then, at last, he spoke. These designs... His voice was calm, unreadable. Emma didn't breathe. Liam tapped a finger against the desk. Then, he smirked. They're good. A wave of relief crashed through her. but she didn't let it show. She kept her expression neutral. Good? His smirk deepened, like he could hear the tension in her voice. Better than I expected. Emma narrowed her eyes. What was he expecting? Stick figures? And what exactly were you expecting, Mr. Carter? She asked, tilting her head. Liam leaned back in his chair, watching her as if she was the most interesting puzzle he'd come across. That's the real question, isn't it? Emma fought the urge to roll her eyes. This man loved his games. So? She pressed. Do I get the job or not? Liam didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lifted the portfolio one last time, tapping it against the desk, before leaning forward. You start Monday. Emma blinked. Wait, I got the job? Liam's lips curved slightly. That's what I just said. For a second, she sat there, processing it. Then, she straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and gave a small nod. Good. She stood, picked up her bag, and turned toward the door. But just as she reached for the handle, Emma. She froze. His voice was different this time. Not cold, not teasing. Something else. She turned slightly, glancing over her shoulder. Liam studied her for a long moment, as if considering something. Then, in that same calm, measured voice, he said, "This is just the beginning." Emma swallowed. For some reason, the weight of those words settled deep in her chest, as if she had just stepped into something bigger than she could possibly imagine. Emma had barely settled into her new job when trouble arrived. She had spent the first week at KC Fashions working harder than she ever had in her life, sketching, adjusting, revising, and proving every single day that she belonged here. And yet, no matter how hard she tried, there was always a pair of eyes watching her, eyes that held something sharp, something dangerous. Her name was Victoria Sterling. Tall, beautiful, a force of confidence and elegance, and, most importantly, Liam Carter's longtime admirer. She wasn't just another woman interested in him. She was the kind of woman who didn't take no for an answer. Everyone at KC Fashions knew who she was. A powerful executive from a high-profile fashion company, a woman who had built her own empire, and the only woman Liam Carter had ever been linked to publicly. There were rumors that she had pursued him for years, that they were once close, that she still wanted him. And now, she was here. Emma first saw her at the company gala, a private event held to celebrate the launch of the upcoming winter collection. The same collection Emma had worked on. She was standing by the bar, dressed in a dangerously sleek red dress, holding a champagne flute with effortless grace. When Liam entered the room, Victoria's gaze locked onto him instantly. Emma watched as Victoria glided toward him like a predator that had just found its prey. Something tells me this woman isn't used to losing. She wasn't expecting Liam to turn around and walk away. But that's exactly what he did. Victoria smirked, as if she had expected the challenge. This won't be the last time I see her, will it? Emma had no idea how right she was. The next morning, Emma walked into work early, determined to focus. She wasn't going to let herself get distracted by company politics or personal drama. I worked hard to be here. Nothing else matters. But as she entered the design studio, she felt it, that presence, a tension in the air, then a voice, smooth, cold, confident. You must be Emma Brooks. Emma turned, and there she was, Victoria Sterling. Up close, she was even more intimidating, the kind of woman who could destroy someone's career with a single whispered word. Emma kept her expression neutral. And you are? Victoria's red lips curled into a slow smile. Oh, sweetheart, you already know who I am. Emma said nothing. Victoria tilted her head, eyes assessing. I've been meaning to meet you. Imagine my surprise when I heard that a nobody. She paused, as if tasting the word, was suddenly working under Liam Carter. Emma didn't flinch. She knew exactly what Victoria was doing, trying to unnerve her, trying to make her feel small. Emma smiled, just as coldly. "And imagine my surprise," she said smoothly, "when I realized Liam Carter isn't interested in you." Victoria's eyes darkened. For the first time, Emma saw a flicker of something dangerous behind her carefully controlled expression. Then, just like that, Victoria laughed. "Oh, I see," she mused. "You're one of those women." Emma raised an eyebrow. "And what kind is that?" "The kind that thinks she's different." Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I've known Liam Carter a long time, sweetheart. I know him better than anyone." Emma's pulse quickened, but she refused to show it. Victoria leaned in slightly, voice soft but laced with ice. "You're just a temporary distraction," she whispered. Then, she walked away, leaving Emma standing there, heart pounding. "Is that all you got?" She didn't know whether to be furious or amused, but one thing was certain. Victoria Sterling wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Days passed, and every single one of them, Victoria made sure to remind Emma that she was watching. She appeared at business meetings she had no reason to attend. She made casual comments to Emma's co-workers about how long Liam and she had known each other. She even accidentally bumped into Liam at lunch, smiling, laughing, touching his arm. Emma told herself it didn't bother her. She told herself that it wasn't her business. But then, one night, as she was leaving the office, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Victoria, standing outside Liam's car, the two of them talking. Emma couldn't hear what they were saying, but she could see Victoria's expression. Smug. Victorious. Then, Liam turned away and walked off. Victoria's smile didn't waver. Instead, she pulled out her phone. And a moment later, Emma's phone buzzed. A single message. Emma stared at her phone screen. The "you should step aside while you still can." A rush of emotions crashed over her. Anger, disbelief, determination. Victoria Sterling had just declared war. And Emma? She wasn't about to back down. If she thinks she can scare me away, she's got another thing coming. With a sharp exhale, she locked her phone, straightened her back, and walked away. She had worked too hard to let some jealous, entitled woman push her out. The next few days were hell. Victoria wasn't just playing games anymore. She was striking where it hurt. At first, it was small things. Emma would leave her sketches on her desk, only to return and find them missing. Emails she was supposed to receive never arrived, causing her to miss important meetings. Her designs somehow leaked before the official presentation. It was sabotage, and everyone in the company knew it, but no one said a word. Because Victoria Sterling was powerful, people were afraid of her, except for one person. Emma kept her head down. She refused to give Victoria the satisfaction of seeing her struggle. But one afternoon, while she was reworking an entire collection because her original designs had mysteriously disappeared, Liam appeared at her desk. He took one look at her exhausted face, the chaos of papers around her, and frowned. What happened? Emma didn't look up. "Nothing. Just fixing a problem." Liam's sharp gaze flickered across her desk. Then, his voice dropped. "Who did this?" Emma hesitated. "If I tell him, will it sound like I'm complaining? Will it make me seem weak?" She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. I'll handle it." Liam was silent for a moment. Then, he stepped closer, voice low but firm. "Emma." She finally looked up. His expression was unreadable, but there was something dangerous in his eyes. Something that told her he already knew, and he wasn't going to let it slide. That evening, Liam Carter walked straight into Victoria's office. She was sitting behind her desk, a satisfied smile on her lips, until she saw him. "Liam," she greeted smoothly. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Liam didn't bother with small talk. "You're messing with Emma." Victoria's smirk widened. "Oh? Did she run crying to you?" Liam's jaw tightened. "Number, but I'm not blind." Victoria leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "So what? You're here to protect her?" Her voice dripped with mockery. Liam's eyes darkened. "Number, I'm here to warn you." Victoria's smile faltered. Liam leaned down, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. "I don't care what you do with your time, Victoria, but if you sabotage my employees again," his gaze turned ice cold, "you'll regret it." A heavy silence filled the room. For the first time, Victoria's confidence cracked. Liam didn't wait for a response. He turned and walked away, without looking back. That night, Emma received another message. "You think he can protect you? Let's see how long that lasts." Emma's fingers tightened around her phone. Enough was enough. If she wants a fight, she's going to get one. The next day, Emma walked into the office with fire in her veins. She wasn't just going to survive Victoria's games, she was going to end them. Victoria Sterling was gone. Liam fired her without hesitation, and just like that, the woman who had spent weeks trying to sabotage Emma was erased from KC Fashions. That night, Emma received a message. "Meet me on the rooftop." She hesitated but went anyway. Liam stood there, city lights glowing behind him, his usual sharpness replaced by something softer. "You handled today well," he said. Emma smirked. "Did you think I wouldn't?" Liam chuckled. "No, but I like proving myself right." The air between them shifted. For the first time, the tension wasn't about work. It was something else. Something Emma wasn't sure she was ready for. "I should go," she said, voice quieter than she intended. Liam's gaze held hers. Then, he let her leave. But deep down, she knew. This wasn't over. Liam Carter never lost, and he wasn't about to start now. The next few days, Emma noticed the change, the way he lingered, the way his eyes followed her when he thought she wasn't looking, the way he found excuses to keep her close. One evening, he called her to his office after hours. "You look tired," he said. Emma raised an eyebrow. "That's not a work emergency." Liam smirked. "It is for me." Before she could argue, he grabbed his coat. "Come on." Emma hesitated. "Where?" Liam's voice was smooth, confident. "Just trust me." And somehow she did. The dinner was quiet, intimate, different. Then, outside under the soft glow of streetlights, Liam reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I could kiss you right now," he murmured. Emma's breath hitched. She wanted to, but instead she stepped back. "I can't." Liam exhaled, studying her carefully. Then with a small smirk, he said, "Not yet." And just like that, he let her go. But Emma knew the truth. Liam Carter didn't give up. This was only the beginning. Months passed. Emma had fought hard to resist him, but Liam Carter was relentless. Every time she pushed him away, he found a way back in. Every time she denied her feelings, he made her feel them even more. Until one day, she stopped fighting. Because the truth was, she had fallen for him. Their relationship wasn't a fairy tale. They argued. They challenged each other. They drove each other insane. But at the end of the day, they always came back to each other. Emma's career flourished. She was no longer just an employee. She was one of the top designers at KC Fashions. And Liam? He was still the same powerful, confident CEO. But when it came to Emma, he was different, softer, warmer, hers. One evening, under the soft glow of city lights, Liam took her to the rooftop, the same place where everything changed. I knew from the start that you were different, he said, holding her hands. Emma smiled. Because I wasn't afraid to call you out? Liam chuckled. Because you weren't afraid of me. Then, without another word, he pulled out a small velvet box and knelt down. Emma's breath caught. Liam Carter, the man who once terrified her, the man who once seemed untouchable. Now, he was on one knee, offering her forever. Marry me, Emma. Tears filled her eyes. She had never dreamed of a life like this. But now that it was here, she wanted it. Yes, she whispered. Liam slipped the ring onto her finger. Then, he pulled her into a deep, breathtaking kiss. And just like that, the woman who had once hugged the wrong man at an airport had ended up with the right one all along. Emma had always believed in hard work, not shortcuts, but she played dirty, and if Emma wanted to survive, she had to stop being the girl who played fair. That morning, she didn't walk into the office with fear. She walked in with a plan. Victoria wanted a war? Emma was done backing down. Emma spent the entire night gathering proof. The missing sketches? She found security footage showing Victoria's assistant sneaking into her office. The leaked designs? A fake email chain traced back to Victoria's private email. The missing documents? A disgruntled intern confessed everything after Emma subtly pushed the right buttons. Now, standing outside Liam's office, Emma held all the evidence in her hands. She knocked, firmly. Come in. The moment she stepped inside, Liam looked up, one glance at her expression, and his brows furrowed. Emma. She strode to his desk and dropped the folder in front of him. Liam glanced down, flipping it open. As his eyes moved over the documents, his expression shifted. From curiosity to realization to pure, controlled fury. Emma crossed her arms. Now do you believe me? Liam slowly closed the folder, his jaw tightening. Then he looked at her, and for the first time she saw something in his gaze. Not just anger, not just frustration, but respect. Later that afternoon, Liam called for a private meeting. The attendees, Victoria, her assistant, and, of course, Emma. Victoria strolled into the conference room like she owned the place. Emma, on the other hand, sat calmly, her face unreadable. Liam arrived last. When he stepped inside, everyone fell silent. Without saying a word, he dropped Emma's folder onto the table. Victoria's smirk vanished. Liam's voice was ice. Care to explain this? Victoria's eyes flicked over the documents, and for a split second, Emma saw it, the panic. But Victoria Sterling was too smart to show weakness for long. She let out a soft, amused laugh. Liam, she purred, surely you don't believe... Liam cut her off. Save it, Victoria. The room turned cold. His eyes locked onto hers, merciless and sharp. I don't care what petty games you play outside this company, but when you sabotage my employees, you cross a line. Emma sat back, watching. She didn't need to say a word, because Liam was handling it. Victoria's jaw tightened. Then she made her final mistake. She turned to Emma, her voice dripping with venom. Don't think for a second that you've won. Emma smiled, not a kind smile, not a nervous one, a cold, knowing smile. I already have. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line. Then she stood up, and without another word, she walked out. That evening, as Emma was packing up her things, she felt a presence behind her. She turned and found Liam, leaning against the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but after a long pause, he simply said, You handled that well. Emma tilted her head. Are you admitting that you underestimated me? Liam's lips curved slightly. Maybe. A beat of silence. Then, he stepped closer. So, what are you planning to do now that your enemy is gone? Emma met his gaze, unwavering. Oh, I don't know, she said, a slow smile forming. Maybe take your job someday." Liam laughed, a real laugh. And for the first time since meeting him, Emma realized something. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. This was about proving she belonged. And Liam Carter? He was starting to see it too.